Let's talk about making huge bets on the future. I'm talking about the kind of decisions that shape industries and, honestly, the world we live in. And there's a powerful way of thinking that guides all of it, and it's not a crystal ball. I mean, seriously, how do you even begin to decide what to do with $2 trillion? It's a number that just kind of breaks your brain. But for leaders in government and massive companies, this is the scale they're working on. So how on earth do they do it? And look, this isn't some made-up number. That $2 trillion, that's roughly what it might cost to update the entire electrical grid in the United States. It's the kind of money a company like Tesla has to think about when they're planning a massive new battery factory. These are absolutely giant, world-changing decisions. To make these calls, you don't just, guess. There's a whole discipline for this called engineering economics. It's basically a toolkit for cutting through all the noise and making really smart financial bets on what's to come. So, what's the secret? What's the core idea in that toolkit? Well, it's not some crazy complex formula. It's a simple but incredibly powerful concept called the time value of money. And once you get this, everything else just clicks into place. Okay, this is where it gets really fun. We're about to see how a tiny bit of money, when you add a whole lot of time, can turn into a fortune that is just mind-boggling. And we're going to start with probably the most famous example in financial history. You've probably heard the story. Back in 1626, Manhattan Island was famously purchased for goods worth about 24 bucks. People always talk about what a steal that was, but what if it wasn't the best deal possible? What if, instead of buying the land, that $24 was just invested? So let's run a little thought experiment. Let's say that 24 bucks earned a pretty standard 8% interest every year, and then you just left it alone. For almost 400 years, what do you think that little pile of cash would be worth by 2015? Take a guess. Seriously, I'll wait. Yeah, you're not even close. $798 trillion. No, that is not a typo. That is the insane, almost magical power of compound interest over a long, long time. That 24 bucks would be worth more than, everything. The entire world's economy. And that right there is the key. A dollar today is worth so much more than a dollar tomorrow, all because of its potential to grow. Now, that's a wild history lesson, but this isn't just a fun fact. This exact same logic is what drives modern finance. It's how lottery winners have to think, and it's how giant companies decide if they're going to build the next big thing. What's so cool about this is that these two situations look totally different, right? A lottery winner and a big corporation. But look closer. They are asking the exact same question. Is this pile of money I can have right now worth more or less than that promise of more money trickling in over the future? It's the same fundamental choice. And mastering this logic, understanding how to weigh today's cost against tomorrow's reward, is exactly how a tiny little startup can make the right bets to become a global giant. And, well, nobody has done that better than our next example. We all know this story. Apple started in a garage. But to grow, they needed cash. They needed money now to invest in their future. So they made a huge decision. They turned their partnership into a corporation so they could raise that money. They took on a present cost to unlock a massive future value, and by 2014, that bet had turned them into a nearly $700 billion company. Okay, but let's get real for a second. These things aren't guaranteed. It's not just about dreaming of future trillions. To make a smart decision, you have to be brutally honest about two other things: what it's really going to cost you today, and the risks you're about to take on. Before you can even begin to calculate some potential future payoff, you have to know, down to the penny, every single cost involved right now. You just have to. Let's take a product that we all know pretty well. So if you go back to 2014, the parts for an iPhone 6 cost less than 200 bucks, and the actual cost to assemble it, just $4. Apple had to know these numbers inside and out to decide on a price and figure out their potential profits. Every big investment decision starts with a cost breakdown, just like this. So you've got your costs figured out. But then there's the other huge piece of the puzzle: risk. The future is, uncertain. What if people don't buy your product? What if a competitor comes out with something better? Every single investment is a gamble, and that risk has to be accounted for. And this brings us to a fundamental rule of economics, and it's something we all kind of know instinctively. It's this:
You don't take on a bigger risk unless you have a shot at a bigger reward. It's just that simple. Investors have to be compensated for taking a bigger gamble.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. What's the bottom line here? Let's boil all of this down into a simple, powerful toolkit that you can actually use to think more clearly about your own future. It really just comes down to 3 steps. First, always remember that time is powerful. A dollar today is worth more than a dollar tomorrow because it can grow. Second, to compare apples to apples, you've got to bring all that future money back to what it's worth today. And third, you have to balance the scales. A bigger risk absolutely has to come with the possibility of a bigger prize. And look, this way of thinking isn't just for some engineer or a CEO in a boardroom. This is the exact same logic you use when you put money into a retirement account, investing now for a bigger payoff later. It's the logic behind a student loan, taking on a cost today for the promise of a better future. It's the framework for almost every major decision you'll make in your life. So I'll leave you with this question. Every choice you make with your money, your time, your career is an investment. So using this toolkit, ask yourself, what future value are you building with the choices you make today? Thanks for joining me.